previously on the Elevate With Us podcast. I'm really excited to welcome Kristin to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. At that point, my husband was like, it'd really be great if you came, like, really, I need you. So he kind of broke me down. There is a need, so we can fill that need. So we just kind of listen to what's happening in the industry, in the market, and just looking at opportunities for us to go in and help out. Our kids have to know it's okay to make mistakes, but own them.
Yes.
Correct it. Don't continue making those mistakes.
And I'm sure you see this too with the young people that I find that a lot of them have a hard time taking criticism. I don't know if they are taking or getting in trouble.
Yeah.
They're like so freaked out. They so want to be perfect, and they don't realize that, I mean, that's just not how it works.
You can't be perfect. So
no. And you're going to get criticism from teachers, from your parents, from almost a stranger at a supermarket. And when you become an adult, from your boss, and you have to figure out how to take that and make yourself better.
For sure.
They might not have delivered it well, but you need to figure out how to grow from it.
Yeah, and just trying to, teach my kids too. I mean, it's hard when because my kids are getting a little older, so they're starting to see like, oh, they might be left out.
Oh, it's the worst.
It is, and we haven't really dealt with it too much, but I'm like kind of preparing, but like, you're not going to be for everyone, but you can still be nice. Like, and as I tell my kids, I don't care if you're the best athlete. You don't have to be the best, the smartest kid in the class, but I'm always like, you better be the nicest. Like, I better never hear from a teacher that you were the bully. I was like, I'd be devastated, to hear that. So I'm always like, just try to be the nicest. Like, that you totally have control over.
Absolutely. And I always tell them, to be cognizant of the people around them. If there's like a kid that maybe is sitting alone at lunch, even though I found out yesterday they have assigned seats at lunch. Did you know that? Did they have it at your kids?
Mine don't.
I thought it was so weird. I'm like, really?
Sometimes by teachers. I know when I taught school, there were certain classes that
had assigned seats at lunch.
And it wasn't always forever, but it was just to teach them, like, we need to act right in the cafeteria, or there's going to be consequences.
And so that might be the group of kids that he shares lunch with. But a part of me was sad that they don't have the opportunity to sit with their friends, especially if they don't have any classes with friends that I thought, wow, he's an 8th grader. Okay. We have assigned seats at lunch. This is not what I was expecting.
Yeah, sometimes, hopefully it's not for the whole year, but sometimes I do try to teach them a lesson. But one thing we do with our kids is, you ask them like, well, how was your day?
Yes.
You get the same, like, fine. So we start asking them like, well, what did you do today to make somebody smile?
Oh, I love that.
So, and then we're kind of like, all right, that's your homework. Like, you better come up with something.
Right.
And so then they're like aware of like, trying to make sure that happens.
That's so neat. Yeah. So one of my sons is doing driving school. Having potential drivers really scary.
So that I think is the scariest time as a parent, that like freedom of, and I mean, it's not your kid. I mean, a lot of kids or parents are like, my kid's a great driver. It's just everybody else on the road.
Oh, for sure.
What you have to worry about.
So it's given me alone time with my younger son, which I revel in, right? I mean, he's 14. He only likes me so much, right? So if I can get like 30 to 45 minutes of a conversation with him, that's amazing. And to have it just with one for me is unusual since I'm a single mom. So I've been using these a few days. And so I asked him to try to get a better conversation with, well, who did you sit with at lunch? And he's like, the same people I sit with every day because it's assigned. And I was like, well, do you know the kids? Like, I thought, oh gosh, because they don't have recess anymore. I thought that's like their time to unwind a little bit, but I'll find out. I'm going to ask him about it today. Why do you guys have assigned seats? Like, is it wild?
Did you have this the whole time?
Yeah. So it's super interesting. So let's talk a little bit more about your companies and kind of how you guys support realtors. So I'm going to use a situation that happened with me recently, and it might be a little bit of a story. So I had a listing, and we did a broker open that was Christmas themed, and Michelle came and set up the lights because it just kind of fell in, and I learned so much about the lights, and I learned so much more about your company than I didn't know. And I learned a lot about Kingfish. I actually don't think I had known much about it other than that you guys had that company. And what happened is I sold my mother's house, and she was with a different company for termite bond, and it wasn't transferable. And it was the first time I had ever experienced that, because when she bought the home, it was. And obviously they probably sent paperwork out, and I don't know about you, I don't read the fine lines on all those things. And so they were going to charge the new buyer like triple of what she had paid previously. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to Michelle and I said, hey, can you help me with this? Like, what would be the cost? And when I tell you that girl went into action like nothing I'd ever seen before, it was amazing. I mean, not only did it save the buyer's money, it saved my mom's money, because that same company was also the termite bondholder on the house she was buying, who, smaller home from Shearwater to 𝗥𝗢𝗄, it tripled.
Wow.
Tripled.
Wow.
And I mean, she went above and beyond like nothing I have ever seen. And that is something that I will never forget. I have told every agent in the brokerage. One of my other agents had a WDO issue, reached out to Kingfish. The person that came out spent a long time educating Anthony, who's a relatively new-ish agent, but has done a lot of volume and really knows things. But, this is all about experience, right? You don't know what you don't know. Right. And he had never had a property that had a significant WDO issue. And they came out and just did amazing.
Well, we appreciate that. And that's what we try to do is, put ourselves in the shoes of the people that are going through that. Like you said, it'd be a stressful time, selling a house, and then you got this other issue with termites that you didn't expect. And so we try to just make a couple extra phone calls and see if you can make a huge difference to these people. And that is what's nice about having several companies,
right?
Is that we can work so closely together and help solve so many problems for the real estate transaction. So.
No, it's really nice, because I think that WDO is such a big group of things, right? Everybody assumes it's only termites, right? But they forget that like mold is a living organism, so it falls under that. And they don't realize that even if you're not required to have a WDO inspection, you probably should. And some inspection companies will perform a WDO because I guess it's just like one little extra certification, but it's probably in their best interest to actually have a pest company be involved in that. And that's a service that you guys can provide.
Correct. And we can do the home inspection, but then we can then offer that service after you're in that home, because we have the pest control company with it. Yes, some home inspection companies do offer WDO that don't have a pest control company, but they're kind of partnered with one.
Yes.
But then once that inspection's done, that really is as far as they can go.
Exactly.
And especially too, like, every state's a little different. So we've got people moving in from all other states that don't know about, like they do WDOs differently or don't have them. I think it's more of a southern humid type
Makes
situation,
sense.
you know, like with different or more extreme. So if you're moving from a state that it wasn't that huge of a deal, you're like, well, what's this about? So that education part is such a valuable piece that we have really pest experts as part of our staff to be able to help the customers there.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really important. And I think that the other really neat thing that you guys offer is if someone uses your company for a home inspection, there's a bit of a guarantee. So can you talk about the warranty that comes with it?
The warranty on the home inspection, when we are backed by a home warranty company, so it goes in the hands of that warranty company to deal with, so that there is that backing that, mistakes happen.
For sure.
And that's where you just have to own it. But it's how you handle those mistakes that makes all the difference. Like, nobody's perfect, but you can't run and hide from your mistakes. Own it if there was a mistake, and then work to make it correct. And so with that home warranty company, that is helping to make it anything that might have been missed correct.
Listen, I say this all the time. People are disappointed when their expectations aren't met. Mm-hmm. So you have a home inspection. It says that there's, quote unquote, nothing wrong with the house. Mm-hmm. A week later, I don't know, make it up, you have a plumbing leak, right? And you're like, I paid blank amount of money to have this inspected. and they find out that it's, you know, it was something that should have been found, and maybe the inspector didn't find it because there was something blocking it.
Right. Yes.
You know, and so it wasn't really their fault. It was a consequence of the situation. And, you know, as realtors, we don't love that call.
Yeah.
It is not a good one when they just bought a house for whatever amount of money, whether it was $100,000 or $100 million. Everybody deserves to feel that they bought something great when they paid to have it inspected. So I think this is a super amazing feature. I don't know if that's the right word that I should use for it, that I don't know if everyone knows. I only recently found out about it. I think I did know, and then I forgot.
Yeah, so we do offer that. And then it goes back to the education. For agents to really know what happens during an inspection, to be able to tell their clients.
Sure.
So like you said, if furniture's blocking something, like a home inspector's not going to move, you know, certain things in that home. So making sure it's totally prepared, and then educating your buyers on what exactly is going to be inspected, knowing that information. We have done where our inspectors will go in and teach like agents and new agents especially, here's what the home inspection process really looks like, to help them. Because, you know, as a new agent, they're coming in learning so much.
There are so many things.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think we're due for that. So I'm glad you brought that up. So I'm going to have you guys come in and talk about that. And, you know, and as realtors, there's a lot of pressure on us to ensure that we provide a menu of services, right? So the other important thing is to have, you know, I always suggest they recommend 3 companies. But in that, when the buyer is like, hey, you know, do you like company A, B, or C? We should say, well, this is what this one offers versus this is what this one offers. And if it's factual, then they can make the decision themselves, because, you know, it can be really expensive to buy a house. And what you don't want is for them to just say, oh, I'm not going to do one at all. That's like super, super risky. And when the market was crazy and people were waiving inspections, I told every agent that was with me and every one of my customers, I said, I made them sign something saying that they understood that this was really risky and it was like against my recommendation. Because, I mean, you don't know what could be. I mean, the house could be so pretty.
And like the biggest purchase of your life.
Biggest financial investment.
Nightmare. Like, you're going to spend that amount of money and not know what you're getting.
Right.
Like, you know, depending on the house and everything, you know, hundreds of dollars, $1,000 could make the difference of, you know, like just knowing exactly. I mean, I wouldn't buy a car without having, you know, like inspecting, and like,
of course,
am I going to drive down the road and tires are going to fall
or
off,
like,
you know,
the bottom comes out.
Like I'm going to like test drive it with, you know, the person. So I'm like, these people are spending so much money and risking not knowing what they're walking into.
I mean,
live there.
I can think of a time where one of the agents was representing a buyer, and the house was very pretty. Like, it had all the pretty wall treatments and everything else. And it was a pretty new house, and the seller had DIY'd it. The house was such a nightmare from the home inspection. I mean, I remember looking at it, and the agent and I were like, I mean, he almost wasn't going to get an inspection because it was a multiple offer situation and it was a very quick turnaround. I'm like, listen, you have got to get somebody in there. And the customer was so thankful that we pressured him to do it because he would have bought the money pit. Yeah. Like, there was leaks behind walls because of whatever the person had installed. And I just can't even imagine. Then, even if the transaction went well, a couple of months later when things started to fail, who is he going to blame?
Yep, for sure. I mean, things can be hidden in a home, and things can be made to look real pretty.
Yes.
For a short amount of time. So even new construction. I mean, I was very naive. We built a home, and so I thought new construction is perfect. Like,
very, very big misconception.
Oh, like so big.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like,
I had no idea. Because I was like, brand new. Everything's
and it's
perfect.
to code. It's been inspected by the county.
Yeah,
it's
and
fine.
Then, so like, and then when we obviously did have a home inspection, and, you know, even too, because we did go by the house a lot. I'm like, as soon as they would have put, if they had put like sheetrock or anything up, like so many things would have been hidden behind those walls.
Yep.
And so like doing, you know, multiple inspections throughout the building process, I highly recommend just from experience, because
so a lot of people don't know that. Not only consumers, a lot of agents don't know that you can do a pre-slab inspection, which means the slab hasn't been poured, by the way. A lot of people don't know about that. They can pre-drywall, right? Which is what you just talked about. Is
1,000%.
Everyone should do it. Like if you're going to take one piece of advice from this, if you are building new construction, do pre-drywall and pre-closing. Pre-drywall is important because you've got electrical and plumbing in, the gas lines, and it's just framing. And then they look at all the systems, and it's incredible what's found.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then do the home inspection before you close, and then 11 months out, before that warranty ends, get another inspection, because stuff starts to, not so perfect. And so get that done, because a lot of times with the builders, once that, year ends, they're bye-bye. So
correct.
Get that done for sure.
And something I've suggested before is that if you are not super handy and you don't really know anything about houses, maybe you're a single mom and just aren't able to recognize when things are breaking, get a home inspection once a year, every 2 years, because, and you can tell them, hey, this isn't, do a really thorough job because I'm going to be doing all the repairs, because then you can take that list. And the best part is I can hand it to Fix It Flamingo and say, hey, fix these things.
And too, like a lot of times things can be found before they become a huge deal.
It's exactly
so if
right.
you can stop a huge problem from happening, it can save you so much time, money, attitude, patience,
aggravation. Because again, a lot of people don't know when things are failing, or you might have an electrical outlet that failed that worked when you bought the home 3 years ago, and now it isn't working. And you didn't know why, or you have like a GFCI that isn't tripping properly, which would be really dangerous because things fail. I mean, naturally. Or anyway, I think it's a really good home maintenance opportunity that a lot of people don't. A lot of people assume a home inspection is only for a house that's for sale. But I totally disagree, and I think it's a really great thing you can do to help.
Absolutely. I would have no clue until there's a major problem.
Exactly.
That something's like that something was starting to go wrong. So for sure.
So I had a situation with a customer, one of my first customers when I moved here. They had a home inspection, and then they did a whole reno. And then a year and a half later, they called me and they're like, hey, do you still have a copy of our home inspection report? And I said, I do. I save it all in your file. They're like, can you send it to us? And I'm like, well, what happened? Well, 30 years ago when the house was built, a finishing nail had hit a piece of plumbing. And they're so thin, and I guess what happens often with those, they either leak right away or they stay there, they slowly rust, and the rust fills the hole, and then the rust degrades. And so they woke up to a river in their house, and because the home inspection had an infrared scan, they knew that the leak wasn't there, and they were able to get it all covered. And so if they hadn't had an inspection done and known that there was no leakity, because they said, hey, we're not going to cover it because you just did a huge, renovation. You did this.
They had the evidence to prove
it was so neat. So realtors, I hope you save them in a file, because you never know when they're going to reach out.
We get our home inspection company every day getting calls from past customers.
Oh, really?
I need my home inspection report. I need my home inspection report. So, whether for insurance or problem, just anything.
Well, that's good. So they can reach out to you as well if they need it. So let's talk about the light company, because I think it's super fascinating, because I had seen houses with it, and I learned so much about it because Michelle showed me the app on her phone. It's so fun. So are the customers able to kind of pick how many they put and how it works? Like, how does it work?
It is a track lighting system.
Okay.
So they're spaced apart the same at every house, but you literally control every single bulb. So if you just want the corners lit up, you can light just those up, and you can choose the colors and if you wanted to light one bulb up, you could.
Wow.
So you literally can control every single bulb, the color. And then in the app, there's already presets. So all of the NFL teams, they already have their colors in there, different patterns. So you're just like, oh, Jaguars today.
Yeah.
So all the college teams are in there. Like I said, there's already so many preset things. Like last night we did Taco Tuesday, so we have it on our lanai, and I was like, oh, Cinco de Mayo. You know, like I was like, let's get a fiesta going. So
oh my gosh, that's so fun.
So the kids reading outside there. So yeah, I mean, it's so fun, and the kids love, and you can create your own pattern. So my kids will play on. We put it on the app on their iPads too,
sure.
so they can play. So yeah, it's just, again, it's something fun. It brings people joy. So yeah, I mean, you can do like your whole house, the front of your house. We just did our lanai part of our house. Our HOA is a little strict where we live. So we have it there.
That's so neat that you can make it completely customizable. Okay. So you can have all the lights, but then if you only want 5 lit, it's not a problem. And you can do anything from probably Halloween to obviously when people think of lights, they generally think of Christmas.
Yes.
So I'm assuming there's probably a whole Christmas situation.
I mean, we had them, and it was every day we were doing something different with our lights. So it was fun. And yeah, it's very easy app to use. Very easy. And some are, you can have them where it's a pattern where they're like chasing, where they're blinking. Like there's so many options.
Oh, wow.
But then like throughout the year, obviously you don't want your house lit up like Christmas. Your neighbors don't want your house lit up like Christmas, you know, every day probably. But like some will use it for security lighting, where it's just the corners where everything was always coming up, landscape lighting, like the up lighting. Now, like the thing is more down lighting, so the lights.
Oh, I would have never even thought of that. That you can set it on a timer.
So there's a timer, so you can set it, and it's like, oh, just have my corners lit up or over my door,
right?
You know, or over the garage doors. So you can control every single light and the patterns. So
that's incredible.
It is.
Wow, that's super amazing. Yeah. That's super. And then let's talk about the seasonal lights, because we're in the season,
yes,
right? Where people. I know you're going to find it's hard to believe. I'm imagining people reach out and you're already booked.
Yes. And that's, I mean, people think, oh, I'll just call in November. And we've already started, you know, hanging lights, and we get very busy. I mean, we were still hanging lights Christmas Eve last year because people were like, I just want them. I don't care when you get them. But we're like, that's our next available date, you know?
Wow.
So yes, call now if you want a seasonal lights or permanent.
Wow. Right. Because I guess people are like, oh, I'm going to get seasonal lights. And they're like, oh, shoot, you also offer permanent. I would just rather have permanent. And you're like, well, cool. I can get there January 1st.
Yeah. We were actually doing some permanent lights in January. Because people are like, I just want to make sure I have them for next year. So go ahead and do them now. So we do those year round, obviously. But yeah, the seasonal lights get super busy, especially when people start, oh, my neighbor has it. I need those too.
Right. Yeah.
So all of a sudden then like all the neighbors are calling. So definitely plan ahead for seasonal lights. And we're seeing more and more companies that are getting out of seasonal lights because people are like, the person that I always used isn't doing it anymore. So we're seeing more and more people call us, be like, can you do my lights this year? So definitely call ahead.
No, well, everyone should always plan, but people aren't so
I mean,
good
you think
about
like,
it.
oh, it's just September. But Christmas will be here. I guess my sister's birthday was the other day, and my husband figured out her birthday is always 100 days from Christmas. So that was Monday.
I saw I saw it and I was devastated. I was like, it's in 100 days. I mean, that's crazy because I'm a huge planner. So like I will start buying presents now, just because that's who I am. Right. And I'm disappointed. I've only bought like 2 presents, and I'm usually better by now. 100 days. Yeah. Well, my son said this morning, he goes, do you realize we're like already 6 weeks into school? Like we're more than halfway through the first quarter.
It goes by so fast. With our lights too, one thing people love is we obviously take them down and we store them. So you don't have to worry about keeping the lights in your garage, moving them around. So we store them for you as well.
That's so nice. I so appreciate you coming in today. Your, menu of services of what you guys do, your family of businesses are just absolutely amazing. And I just commend you for continuing to give back and just providing such a great resource.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Kristin.